Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Hong Kong Horror. I'm your narrator, Simon. Tonight, I want us to take a ride together on one of Hong Kong's minibus. For those of you not from Hong Kong, the minibus is a unique ecosystem. It's a metal box speeding at 80 kilometers an hour through winding mountain roads, lit by nothing but cheap flickering LEDs and the glow of the speedometer. You're trapped in there with 16 strangers. And sometimes, you're trapped to something else. Tonight's story comes from a man. Let's call him Ah-Kurn. It happened only a few years ago, and listening to him tell it, well, it made me look twice at my own reflection in the window on my way home tonight. As always, at the end, let's break this incident down together from a Chinese cultural perspective to see if we can figure out what may have happened to Ah-Kurn. So let's get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let's jump right into Ah-Kurn's story. It was Saturday night. Ah-Kurn had been out late in Mongkok. The usual routine, late dinner, a few drinks. He was escorting his girlfriend home. Let's call her Chloe. By the time they stumbled to the minibus stop, the streets were pretty dead. The neon signs were buzzing, reflecting off the wet pavement. It had been raining. That kind of misty, annoying drizzle that makes the whole city look like it's sweating. A minibus finally pulled up. It was one of those red-topped ones. Ah-Kurn and Chloe climbed on. Now, usually, these vans are packed, but tonight, it was pretty empty. Including Ah-Kurn, Chloe, and the driver, there were only 6 people on board. In the very front row, right behind the driver, sat an old man. You know the type. Wearing a windbreaker jacket over a faded polo shirt, clutching a plastic welcome supermarket bag, staring straight ahead like a statue. In the row behind him sat a young couple. They were asleep, heads knocking together with the rhythm of the engine. Ah-Kurn and Chloe tapped their octopus card for payment and moved to the back of the bus. They took one of the double seats about 3 rows behind the others. That meant the entire back half of the bus, the rows behind them, were completely empty. Just rows of worn vinyl seats staring at their backs. The driver slammed the door shut in the usual aggressive manner before they were even seated. Wham! That heavy mechanical sound that seals you in. He punched the gas, and they were off. As they left the city lights behind, the route took them onto a long, winding stretch of road. This was near Tai Po Road, not too far from Bride's Pool. The streetlights out there are sparse. Those sickly yellow sodium lights that space out every few hundred meters. For long seconds, the inside of the van would be dark, then flash, a burst of yellow light, then darkness again. Ah-Kurn was dozing off, listening to the hum of the engine. And then, the van slowed down. It wasn't a sudden stop. It was a smooth, deliberate pullover to the shoulder. The gravel crunched under the tires. The bus came to a halt in the middle of nowhere. Ah-Kurn opened his eyes. He looked out the window. Nothing but trees and thick, overgrown brush. No houses, just a bus stop at a dark mountain road. He whispered to Chloe, "Did the engine die? Is he checking the tires?" But Chloe squeezed his hand. Her palm was cold. "He's opening the door," she whispered. And she was right. He was. The driver reached out, pulled the lever, and the mechanical arm of the door swung open with a hiss. The humid night air rushed in, smelling of wet earth and ozone. Ah-Kurn leaned forward, looking at the driver. The driver wasn't getting out. He was sitting there, his hands on the wheel, staring out at the open door into the absolute darkness of the tree line. Silence. Just the idling engine rattling the frame of the bus. Then, the driver spoke, his voice rough and impatient. "喂, 你想唔想㗎? Hey, are you getting on or not?" Ah-Kurn felt the blood drain out of his face. He looked at the door. There was no one there. No hiker, no stray dog, just an empty bus stop. 都唔知喺度等乜咁耐嘅? Taking so dang long. Don't even know what you're waiting for, the driver mumbled to himself. He waited another 3 seconds or so, as if watching someone climb the steps onto the bus. And then, Slam. He pulled the lever. The door shut. The driver put the van back into gear and accelerated. Ah-Kurn looked at Chloe. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the terror that she felt. She leaned into his ear, her voice trembling. "Babe, did you see anyone?" "No," he whispered back. "I hope," she swallowed hard. "I hope he's just crazy. I hope nothing actually got on." They both instinctively looked at the empty seats. The bus still looked empty. The old man in the front hadn't moved a muscle. The couple behind him were still asleep. "It's fine," Ah-Kurn lied. "He's just tired. He's probably been driving for hours now. He's probably just seeing things." But the atmosphere in the van changed. You know that feeling, when you walk into a room where people have been arguing. The air felt heavy, thick. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees in seconds. The windows started to fog up. And then the sound started. It began faintly from the very back of the bus. Ah-Kurn froze. It was music, but not radio music. It was Cantonese opera. High-pitched, clanging percussions, but it sounded wrong. It was slow, too slow, like a record being dragged by a heavy hand. The chimes were off-key, sour. And underneath the instruments, there was a low, droning hum, like a mournful moan. Ah-Kurn squeezed his eyes shut and opened them again. The sound still seemed to be getting louder. It was coming from one of the empty seats behind them. He looked at Chloe. She was trembling. She nodded. She heard it too. "Is it someone's ringtone?" she whispered. "Maybe someone dropped the phone back there." "Who the heck has a ringtone like that?" Ah-Kurn hissed. "And why is it getting louder?" The sound was filling the cabin now. Clang, clash, wailing strings. It was deafening to them. Ah-Kurn looked at the front of the bus. The driver was casually driving. The old man staring at his knees. The couple was still sleeping. It seemed as if no one else on board was able to hear it. Only Ah-Kurn and Chloe could hear it. "Don't turn around," Chloe begged, clutching his arm so hard, her nails dug into his skin. "Ah-Kurn, please, don't look back there." Ah-Kurn didn't want to look back there. He felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, like ice-cold breath blowing against his hairline. Music swirled around them, dizzying and nauseating. Suddenly, the sleeping couple in the front woke up. Maybe the motion of the bus woke them, or maybe they felt the cold too. "CKLO. Driver," the young man shouted. "Stop here. We're getting off." The driver lifted his left hand to acknowledge that he heard them and pulled over. Thank God. A stop. Normalcy. The young man stood up. He looked groggy. He stepped toward the door, turning slightly to check on his girlfriend. As he turned, his eyes swept across the back of the bus. He made eye contact with Ah-Kurn. He looked bored, tired, and then his gaze slid past Ah-Kurn to the seat behind him. Ah-Kurn watched the color drain from this young man's face. It was instantaneous. His jaw went slack. His eyes bulged out of his head, veins popping in his neck. He made a sound and stumbled backwards, tripping over his own feet. Ah! He screamed. It was like he wanted to say something, but his mind was moving so fast that only sounds came out, not words. It was raw, primal fear. His girlfriend looked at him, confused. What? What is it? She turned to look where he was pointing. She screamed too, a piercing scream that shattered the silence. They wasted no time getting off the bus. They both jumped off as fast as they possibly could and sprinted off into the night, screaming as they ran, not looking back once. The driver shook his head. Crazy kids, must be high on drugs, he muttered. He slammed the door shut and drove on. He didn't see whatever the couple saw. Now, there were 4 people left on the bus. The driver, the old man, Ah-Kurn, and Chloe. And the music was still playing. Ah-Kurn was paralyzed with fear. He wanted to get off, but his legs wouldn't work. Chloe had buried her face into his chest. She was sobbing silently. Then, the bell rang. Ding! The bright red stopping light on the ceiling flickered on. Ah-Kurn stared at the ceiling. No one had pressed the button. Ding! Ding! It rang again, impatient. Ding, 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 ding. It was manic now. Someone was mashing the button, demanding to be let off. But they were on the highway. There was nothing here. I heard you the first time, the driver yelled, looking into the rearview mirror. Stop pressing it. I'll stop at the next point. Driver, Ah-Kurn finally found his voice. It came out as a croak. Driver, nobody pressed it. There's nobody here. Don't talk nonsense, the driver barked, watching the road. The bell stopped. The music stopped. Silence returned. But it was way worse now. The heaviness in the air was crushing. Ah-Kurn felt a weight on the seat behind him. The springs of the bus creaked, shifting as if someone heavy was adjusting their position. Chloe wouldn't look up. Ah-Kurn turned his head slightly, looking towards the window on his right. It was dark outside, so the glass acted like a black mirror. He could see the reflection of the bus interior. He saw the dim yellow ceiling lights. He saw his own pale, sweaty face. He saw the top of Chloe's head buried in his chest. And then, he saw her hair. Chloe had shoulder-length hair. She had cut it last week. He remembered complimenting her on it. But in the reflection, the hair cascading over her shoulders wasn't short. It was really long, ragged, wet. It draped down over her back, pooling onto the seat. It wasn't Chloe's hair. Ah-Kurn's eyes traveled up the reflection. The long black hair was coming from above Chloe's head. There was a woman. In the reflection, a woman in rotting gray robes was sitting on the top of the seat back, hunched over like a gargoyle. Her limbs were twisted, draped over Chloe's shoulders. Her face, pale, bloated, grayish green, was pressed right on top of Chloe's head. She looked like she was hugging Chloe or merging with her. And in that reflection, the woman's eyes were open, dark, hollow pits, and they were looking straight at Ah-Kurn through the reflection. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't scream. He stared at the reflection, and the thing in the glass smiled, a slow widening of the mouth. Don't look. The voice came from the front. It was the old man. Ah-Kurn snapped his eyes forward. The old man hadn't turned around. He was still staring at his plastic bag, but he spoke clearly, calmly. Young man, don't look at it. Don't speak to it. Don't let it know that you know. Ah-Kurn squeezed his eyes shut. He gripped Chloe so hard, it must have hurt. He started reciting every prayer he knew in his head. Om Mani Bunny Hum, Om Mani Bunny Hum. Driver, the old man shouted. Please stop, now. The driver slammed on the brakes. What is wrong with you people tonight? The door hissed open. The old man stood up. Young man, he said to Ah-Kurn, not making eye contact. Get off now. Ah-Kurn didn't hesitate. He grabbed Chloe and dragged her out. She was dead weight, her legs jelly. But he pulled her down the aisle, past the empty seats, past the old man. They tumbled out of the minibus, onto the pavement, gasping for air. The humidity of the Hong Kong night felt like a blessing. The old man stepped off last. He turned to the driver. Sifu, the old man said, his voice grave, drive straight back to headquarters. Do not look in your mirror. Do not stop for anyone else tonight. Go. The driver, sensing the genuine fear in the old man's voice, didn't argue. He slammed the door shut, and the minibus peeled away, tires screeching, disappearing around the bend. Ah-Kurn, Chloe, and the old man were left standing under a flickering street lamp on the side of the road. Ah-Kurn was shaking. He looked at the old man. Uncle, what was that? The old man lit a cigarette, his hands trembling slightly. I saw her get on, the old man said, smoke drifting into the dark. When the driver opened the door at the woods, she walked right in. She was loud. singing that opera. Why didn't you say anything? Chloe sobbed. If you acknowledge them, the old man said, looking them dead in the eye, they think you're inviting them in. I waited until we were near a major stop again for us to get off. The old man pointed down the road where the bus had vanished. You two were lucky, he said. That one, she was fierce. Usually they sit in the back, they sit alone, but that one, she was sitting right on top of you, young lady. She wanted to wear you like a coat. The old man flicked a cigarette away. Go home, burn incense, you should be fine. Ah-Kurn and Chloe thanked the old man as they went their separate ways. Ah-Kurn says he hasn't taken the minibus at night since. He takes the MTR instead, or he walks. But sometimes, when he's walking past the shop window at night and he catches his reflection in the glass, he always thinks he sees something dark just out of the corner of his eye, hovering over his shoulders, waiting for the music to start again. The next time you're on a late-night minibus ride in Hong Kong and you see an empty seat, maybe don't put your bag on it. Someone might already be sitting there. So, Hong Kong horror fans, what do you think happened here to Ah-Kurn and Chloe? Please pause the video here and let us know your thoughts on this incident in the comments below. Alright, take a deep breath. That was heavy, right? So, let's unpack this one. What exactly happened on that bus? There are a few details in the story that scream danger to anyone who grew up with these superstitions. First, let's talk about the location. And when I say location, I mean two things: the geography and the bus itself. In Chinese belief, spirits are most active in what we call yamyang gaogai, liminal spaces. These are places that are transitional, not quite here, not quite there. Think about a minibus at night. It checks every single box for a spiritual hazard. It's an enclosed metal box speeding through the mountains, lit by flickering LEDs, and full of windows that turn into black mirrors after dark. You are moving, but you are also trapped. This is why minibuses are such a staple of Hong Kong ghost stories. They are mobile liminal spaces. And geographically, Ah-Kurn mentioned that they were near Bride's Pool, Sun Leung Tam. If you're a local, the hairs on your arms just stood up. In Hong Kong folklore, this is arguably one of the most haunted spots in the territory. The legend says a bride was being carried in a sedan chair during a storm. One slip, and she plunged into the pool and drowned. Ever since then, the area has been a magnet for strange accidents and sightings. But the location was just a setup. The inciting incident, the moment things went wrong, was the driver. Do you remember what he did? He stopped at a bus stop in the middle of nowhere, opened the door, and shouted into the dark, "Wait, hey, are you getting on or not?" From a Chinese cultural perspective, this is catastrophic. Rule number 1, spirits usually cannot board vehicles unless invited. By opening the door and verbally acknowledging the empty space, the driver gave implicit permission. This is known as inviting the yin onto the vehicle. The old man confirmed it later. He saw her walk on. This wasn't a hallucination. The driver, without knowing it, acted as the gatekeeper and let her in. Then we have the music. That distorted Cantonese opera. That is a massive red flag. In folklore, UK opera is deeply linked to funeral rites and the spirit world. It's used to entertain the gods, but also the wandering spirits. And if you noticed, only some people could hear it. This brings us to selective perception. Ah-Kurn and Chloe might not have fully opened yamyang yin-yang eyes, but they likely have what we call bunyam taizat, a half-yin constitution. They're sensitive. They feel the sudden cold. They hear the hum. The driver and the sleeping couple? They were spiritually closed or just asleep. Spirits don't waste energy manifesting to people who can't perceive them until they want to be seen. That moment, when the young man wakes up, looks past Ah-Kurn, and screams, that confirms the entity had fully manifested. It stopped hiding. Now, let's talk about the reflection. Ah-Kurn didn't turn around. He saw the woman in the reflection of the window. This follows a classic rule 陰物不可正面示人. Dark things should not appear directly to people. Reflections sit on a boundary between real and unreal. It's a safer way for them to appear. And what he saw, wet hair, bloated face, clinging behavior, this screams 水鬼, a water ghost. It fits the bride pool's legend perfectly. She was a drowning victim, looking for a vessel. And that brings us to the most terrifying part. What did she want with Chloe? The old man described her sitting on top of Chloe. This isn't just a haunting. This is one of the stages of possession. In our folklore, there's a hierarchy. First is Gansan, following. The spirit attaches itself to your presence, not your body. This is the weakest form, and is stage 1. 2. Seonggin, hovering on the shoulders. The spirit positions itself near the shoulders or upper back. This is a testing phase, stage 2. 3. Seongsun, partial possession. The spirit makes physical contact and sits on top of, behind, or wrapped around the person. This is stage 3. At this stage, the spirit is probing for compatibility, but has not fully taken control. Removal is still possible, but time-sensitive. Breaking physical contact can break possession progression. In this situation, open air, movement, and ground contact seems to have severed the attachment before sealing. 4. Dutse, full takeover. The spirit displaces the person's soul, wonpak, and the body becomes a vessel. This is when the person has blackouts, memory gaps, and voice changes. Behavior also becomes inconsistent with that person. This is extremely rare and dangerous. This is stage 4 and final stage of possession. Once it reaches this stage, the original consciousness is suppressed and ritual intervention is required. I think Chloe was at stage 3. The spirit was Atsun pressing down on her, trying to suppress her own soul to make room. Why her? Chloe was vulnerable. It was late. She had been drinking. She was wet from the rain. And most importantly, she was afraid. Her emotional defenses were down. Honestly, Ah-Kurn and Chloe were incredibly lucky that old man was there. That uncle wasn't just a random passenger. He acted like a pro. If you ever find yourself in the situation, do exactly what he did. He didn't react. An amateur would have gasped when the woman walked on the bus. But the old man knew. Acknowledging a spirit validates the connection. It tells them, I can see you. I am reachable. This is called logaming, exposing sensitivity. By staring at his grocery bag and ignoring her, the old man was telling the spirit, I am a rock. I am asleep. I am not a target. He didn't warn anyone verbally. If he had shouted, don't look behind you, the spirit would have known its cover was blown and might have attacked immediately. He brought them some time. He also didn't turn around. Even when he finally spoke, he faced forward. In Chinese metaphysics, facing something aligns your qi, your hei, with it. Jingming Sunchong, frontal clash. Eye contact is an invitation. He denied the spirit that direct channel. Eye contact is not neutral. In folk belief, the eyes are spirit gates. Meeting a spirit's gaze completes recognition. This is why elders warn, 對眼一對就通氣. Once eyes meet, the chi connects. And finally, the old man's timing was surgical. He waited until they were near a major city stop, a place with lights, people, and yang energy, before he shouted, stop. He didn't dump them on the side of a haunted mountain road, where the spirit could easily follow them. He waited for a safe zone. That old man didn't just see a ghost, he outsmarted one. So, the next time you're on a minibus late at night, and the driver stops for no one, maybe don't look out the window, and if you hear opera music where there shouldn't be, just close your eyes and wait for the next stop, and get yourself out of that situation as quick as possible. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you, Hong Kong horror fans, for staying all the way till the final stop. Stay safe, and good night.